It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. President Trump unveils a peace plan for Gaza, with him leading a transitional administration with help from Tony Blair.
Big day, a beautiful day, potentially one of the great days ever in civilization. And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East.
Appearing alongside the president, Israel's prime minister welcomes the plan and warns Hamas to accept it too.
This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way. But it will be done.
But no sign yet from Hamas on whether or not it will agree to the peace plan. Also tonight, Madeleine McCann's suspect Christian B speaks exclusively to Sky News and refuses to answer when we ask if he killed her.
My defence lawyers have told me to say nothing on this topic, and unfortunately I'm going to have to stick to that.
Plus, the Chancellor hints at tax rises as she warns of a tougher economic climate. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello, good evening. President Trump has tonight unveiled a peace plan for Gaza, which he claims will create eternal peace in the Middle East. Appearing alongside Mr. Trump, Israel's Prime Minister welcomed the proposal, which would see the US President lead an interim administration for Gaza with the assistance of the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. But there's no word yet from Hamas on whether or not it will accept the plan. So let's look at the proposals then in more detail. Within 72 hours of Israel publicly accepting the agreement, it calls for all hostages, alive and deceased, to be returned. Israel would then release 250 Palestinians serving life sentences, plus 1,700 Gazans who were detained after the October the 7th attacks. Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence with Israel and to putting down their weapons will be given amnesty and allowed safe passage out of Gaza if they want to leave. Gaza would be run temporarily by an apolitical Palestinian committee. This would be overseen by a so-called Board of Peace chaired by President Trump. Other board members are to include Tony Blair. Under the terms of the plan, Israel will not occupy nor annex Gaza. If the plan is accepted, aid would flow into Gaza through the UN and the Red Crescent, with no interference from either side. The plan also contains a Trump economic development plan aimed at rebuilding Gaza. The proposal stresses that no one will be forced out of Gaza, while those who wish to leave will be able to do so and be free to return. Well, Hamas says it will review the plan in good faith, but it's far from clear if the group will accept the proposals, as our US correspondent James Matthews reports.
This was a White House picture provisionally captioned peace.
President Trump, are you confident, sir, there'll be peace in Gaza anytime soon?
Very confident, said the president to a media pack that had seen the trails of a turning point on Gaza.
So this is a big day, a beautiful day, potentially one of the great days ever in civilization.
Donald Trump didn't undersell it. Behind the marketing was a 20-point plan for peace in Gaza. A transitional government would involve former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair on a board of peace.
One of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister Tony Blair, good man, very good man, and some others.
In a statement, Tony Blair said, President Trump has put down a bold and intelligent plan, which, if agreed, can end the war, bring immediate relief to Gaza, the chance of a brighter and better future for its people, whilst ensuring Israel's absolute and enduring security and the release of all hostages. Donald Trump called it a historic day, and it had that look at the White House. But a historic peace plan doesn't yet have the support, critically, of Hamas. It has said it will review Trump's plan in good faith. He's given it an ultimatum.
If Hamas rejects the deal, which is always possible, they're the only one left. Everyone else has accepted it. But I have a feeling that we're going to have a positive answer. But if not, as you know, Bibi, you'd have our full backing to do what you would have to do.
Israel's Prime Minister spoke of support, but in the same sentence spoke of his country's war aims.
I support your plan to end the war in Gaza, which achieves our war aims. It will bring back to Israel all our hostages, dismantle Hamas's military capabilities, end its political rule, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel.
Why qualify his support? It was a question that wasn't asked, because at this news conference, neither man entertained a Q&A. This might be progress towards peace, but it's not peace in itself, not yet at least. The announcement of a deal would have been huge, a landmark achievement for the self-styled peacemaker president. Peace for the sake of peace itself, but also for stature, legacy, not to mention business opportunities in a more settled Middle East. There was a sideshow in the White House when Benjamin Netanyahu was put on the phone to the Qatari Prime Minister to express regret for bombing Hamas in Qatar this month. In this place, Donald Trump is all-powerful. Whether his power can broker peace in Gaza remains subject to negotiation. James Matthews, Sky News, in Washington.
Well, let's bring in our world news presenter, Yalda Hakim. So, Yalda, is this the breakthrough people have been hoping for?
Well, Anna, that is the big question, and whether it can actually be the kind of breakthrough that we're talking about. I mean, I've been speaking to leading figures in the region tonight, and some are cautiously optimistic, some are concerned. Others are saying, you know, there have been other plans in the past that have been incremental. This is an all-at-once approach, a very Donald Trump approach to any kind of idea of a peace plan as well as a ceasefire. But the ball is now firmly in Hamas's court. And let's go straight to Jerusalem and speak with our Middle East correspondent, Adam Parsons, who joins us live now. And Adam, that is the point now, isn't it? The fact that the weight is on Hamas now to decide, as Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu said there, if Hamas doesn't agree, then Benjamin Netanyahu knows what to do with them.
Yeah, and Hamas didn't have any sight of this plan, basically until, like the rest of us, they watched this press conference and saw the document released. They said they weren't provided with it in advance. It was subsequently rather hurriedly sent to them by Arab partners. They said they're going to look at it in good faith, but they have also said they won't sign up for something that doesn't have Palestinian self-determination. And spoiler alert, this plan doesn't have that. So there's going to have to be more talks around it. And I think there are a lot of people who are looking at this tonight and feel uneasy that Gaza is going to be run not by a group of Palestinian technocrats, but overseen by a peace board, which is headed by Donald Trump. And the only other person we know involved in it is Tony Blair, not a person who is universally loved in this region. So I think there is plenty of work to be done there. The bottom line is that Hamas has the hostages. It's got probably 20 living hostages, the bodies of 28 who've died. Israel wants those to be returned, and Hamas wants something in return. Yes, it will get the release of Palestinian prisoners, and bearing in mind that at one point there were plenty who were saying that Hamas basically has to be expunged, it has to be completely dissolved from the world. The fact that they now have a sort of wriggle room here, that former Hamas fighters who disarm will be given an amnesty, is that enough to get them over the line? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Another group, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, have absolutely rejected that already. But it's down to Hamas to decide whether or not they can live with this deal. But they're not alone in creating those ripples. Tomorrow evening, Benjamin Netanyahu will fly back to Israel and he will go into a cabinet meeting. And that cabinet is now fractured. His government is a flimsy one. It has for a while been held up by the support of two far-right politicians, Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, and they were both incredibly furious before this plan was even announced. They were furious about the apology offered by the Prime Minister to Qatar. Both put out statements. The first, Ben-Gvir, said that this apology was undeserved, that the attack had been justified, that Qatar was a state that incited and funded terrorism. And as if to avoid being outdone, Bezalel Smotrich went up a step and said that Benjamin Netanyahu should be compared to Neville Chamberlain when he appeased the Nazis. It seems almost impossible to imagine that those two will go back to having a long and happy relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu. Frankly, the feeling here is that at some point they will walk, the government will collapse. Now, I still think that peace deal, if it's agreed, will get through because enough opposition parties will want to see it guided through. We've seen opposition big characters like Benny Gantz already recognising this and saying that they will support it. They give the credit to Trump rather than Netanyahu. But we are in a state where Israeli politics is difficult and fractured. The Palestinians feel that they have been left out of this. Hamas didn't even get the plan at the start, and yet everyone heard that threat that if you don't sign up to it, then Trump says that he will back Netanyahu whatever he wants to do. That is a vague threat. So much of this plan is vague, but that threat is vague on the one hand, but for a lot of people, it will seem chillingly precise.
Adam, thank you so much. Let's go straight to Washington and bring in our Mark Stone. And just picking up, Mark, on what Adam was saying there about how vague this plan is, and perhaps one of the reasons why neither leader stayed around for questions from the press. They said what they had to say, and they said they weren't going to take any questions because perhaps they don't have the answers as yet.
Yeah, they will say that's because they don't want to jeopardise what is clearly still a very sensitive moment. But it was very telling for me that neither man, both of whom love the media spotlight, love to spar with the media, chose today not to. But I have just caught up with Steve Witkoff, who is Donald Trump's Middle East envoy, right at the very heart of this process. Here's what he told me.
So tell us how hopeful you are.
I'm hopeful. I really am.
What's the difference this time?
I think that all the stakeholders in this, the people who it matters to, they want to see it happen. And the president believes it's going to happen and is dug in, and that's what really gives me hope. He gets to the finish line. I've never seen anyone in all areas, and I know him for a long time, who gets to the finish line better than President Trump.
What about assurances for assurances for Palestinian self-determination? Is there any assurance for Palestinian self-determination?
Of course, I think so. Yeah, I just think they have to prove. We have to set up success for them. We have to make sure this is a complicated deal to hand off from one government to another. So
and Tony Blair in charge, is that I mean, with his Iraq War legacy?
I think if Tony's involved, he's going to do a great job. But I'm going to be.
So there we go. If Tony's in charge, so says Steve Witkoff, we will do a good job. Tony Blair, of course, the legacy of the Iraq War, we all know that. It was 27 years ago where Tony Blair first involved himself in the Middle East peace process. Guess who was in charge in Israel back then? Yes, it was Benjamin Netanyahu. Look, I think, Yalda, there are certain significant positives in this 20-point plan at the end of this pretty remarkable day. The first is that no longer are Palestinians being told they must leave the Gaza Strip. That was Donald Trump's position some time ago. It no longer is. They can stay if they want to. That's really important. The second point is that the United Nations and other aid agencies aligned to the United Nations would be involved in the distributing of aid within Gaza. That's important. At the moment, it is a somewhat obscure organisation, the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, which is operated by Israel, that is doing that aid. So that is very important. But But the massive gaps are clearly Palestinian self-determination. Who runs Gaza? Will it be Palestinians? At the moment, the plan is that the Palestinian Authority can only take over when it reforms. That's pretty woolly. What does that mean? Steve Witkoff seems to think they do have self-determination rights in the future. We will see. And then, of course, Hamas. How do they respond? They are clearly not a good faith actor in any of this, but they hold the key that is the hostages. And without them coming out, then all this is off. So many, many unanswered questions, but a massively significant day, no question.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. Thank you so much. So, as Mark was saying there, a significant moment. While this plan is not a perfect plan, we'll have to see if it even gets off the ground and how it's actually rolled out. For now, it is a plan, and one that is firmly in Hamas's court in terms of what they decide to do. Palestinians have told me, who are looking over this detailed plan, that frankly they find themselves in a conundrum. They want a ceasefire in Gaza. They want the war there to end. But on the other hand, they are concerned about, for example, Tony Blair being part of a committee to oversee their affairs in Gaza. So big questions being asked tonight. But there are others who are saying now is not the time to cherry pick. There is something on the table which could lead to a cessation of the fighting, the hostility, the war, the bloodshed that we continue to see in Gaza. Anna, we will continue to monitor all of the developments and bringing you more analysis. But for now, back to you.
Indeed so. Yalda, thank you. Now, in an exclusive interview with Sky News, Christian B., the German suspect in the Madeleine McCann case, has refused to answer questions about whether or not he abducted and killed her. In his first interview since being released from prison for a separate offence, he says he is the victim of a witch hunt. German prosecutors say they have evidence that Christian B. killed Madeleine, who vanished from her bed during a Portuguese holiday in 2007. Our crime correspondent, Martin Brunt, has this report.
Did you kidnap and kill Madeleine McCann?
My defence lawyers have told me to say nothing on this topic, and unfortunately I'm going to have to stick to that.
Recently, Christian B., as he's known under German privacy rules, was released from prison at the end of a rape sentence. 2 weeks on, he arrived to confront the prosecutor, who says he was Madeleine McCann's killer, but doesn't have enough to charge him. The lawyer refused to meet him. Rejected and dejected, the suspect later explained his grievance.
Actually, I'm not feeling free. I still have this ankle track. And I'm followed by police. Ja, ist richtig. Ich war bei der Staatsanwaltschaft.
I was at the public prosecutor's office because I wanted to speak to Mr. Wolters. I wanted to ask them to stop this witch hunt against me and give me my life back. I was told that Mr. Wolters couldn't be bothered to speak to me and that I should leave the building.
Madeleine McCann was 3 when she vanished on a family holiday in Portugal 18 years ago. The prosecutor says drifter Christian B., a convicted child sex attacker, abducted and killed Madeleine, though he's never questioned him about her. Christian B. is a man of few words. There are lots of questions we'd like to ask him. If it wasn't him, where was he on the night? What was he doing? Why was his mobile phone at the scene? And who was the mystery caller who rang him before Madeleine vanished? There are lots of other questions when he's ready to talk more fully. Christian B. is due back in court next month to face a minor charge of insulting a prison warder. That seems to be the least of his problems.
Well, Martin joins us live now from New Scotland Yard. A rare interview then, Martin, from a man who says he's being hounded. So many questions, as you outlined. Will they ever be answered?
It's very difficult to tell. I mean, this was a golden opportunity when we caught up with him for him to say that he denied the accusations of the prosecutor. I mean, he's made it clear through his lawyers that that's his stance. You know, you'd have thought, given the opportunity to talk to the media, he might have grabbed it. But, you know, he rather hid behind what he said was the advice of his lawyers. I don't know if we're ever going to get those answers. The prosecutor continues to tell us that he's his only suspect. He is determined to pursue him. He says that it won't go on forever, his pursuit of Christian B, but it's gone on for at least 5 years. And almost 5 years ago, he was telling me the same thing. And while he is the suspect, I think it's going to be impossible to get Christian B to talk to us more openly. I mean, it's fair to say it wasn't the interview that I hoped it would be.
Martin, live for us there. Thank you. The Chancellor has hinted at tax rises in November's budget, saying she's facing harsh global headwinds. Rachel Reeves told the Labour Party conference in Liverpool that she wanted to keep taxes, inflation and interest rates as low as possible. But the Prime Minister's Chief Secretary appeared to go further. Darren Jones told Sky News that although Labour's manifesto commitment not to raise income tax, national insurance or VAT stands today, key decisions haven't been taken yet. Our economics editor, Ed Conway, reports now from Liverpool.
Not long ago, a lot of people thought Rachel Reeves might not be Chancellor by party conference. This speech was about proving them very wrong, as well as serving as a sort of best bits from Labour's first year.
We've turned our backs on the path of decline, and we've chosen investment. For jobs and for pay, for energy independence and for our national security, we chose investment.
And in case you missed it, it was also about reminding people of Labour's record as the party of investment, of building. And, says the Chancellor, one of the biggest risks for that economic building project would be a reform government.
Where we recognise that we are strongest when we work together towards that better Britain. A patriotism not measured in how quick you are to exclude, how loudly you shout, how willing you are to exploit every division and distort every challenge that we face, but a patriotism measured in our obstinate determination, our impatience, our commitment to building a better, fairer, more prosperous Britain. That is our patriotic mission.
Now, in practice, there wasn't much actual new policy in this speech. Instead, it was a tightly controlled set piece, part of a tightly controlled event. Now, conference speeches are not always about new policies and rabbits out of a hat. This one certainly wasn't. But they are sometimes about something else, about shifting public opinion, about leadership. And the critique a lot of people here have is, so far this Labour government has been less about leading and more about reacting. Still, business seemed pretty happy with the Chancellor's big speech.
Powerful examples around shipbuilding, about steel making, about the quality of jobs. And in previous governments, we never had chancellors speaking about manufacturing.
So you're happy?
I think that's going to send a very strong signal.
All eyes will be on the budget, and I think what business wants to see there is the overall tax burden on business is already at decades high. We really need to make sure it doesn't increase further.
Back in the real world, a few hundred yards outside the conference, the impact of last year's national insurance hikes are still being felt.
So if you look at our payroll in March, so you looked at it in April, it was 10 grand more in April than it was in March, just on the national insurance. So, of course, we had to put prices up. There's a limit to how much we can do that, right? So, in the end, we've taken a cut to our bottom line, which can only go on so long because we've been doing that quite a lot for the last couple of years.
But is the government cooking up more tax rises? Because for all that this is a tightly controlled event, there is one thing Rachel Reeves doesn't control: the official estimate of the black hole in the public finances. That's due on Friday, and it might force the government to raise taxes, possibly even the ones Labour promised not to raise.
And when the Chancellor is in a position to make decisions, which she will be in the coming weeks, she will make those decisions and then she'll tell the country at budget in the normal way.
So basically you cannot rule out raising VAT or income tax, for example, now?
I'm not ruling anything out or anything in. All I'm saying is today the manifesto stands, we've got a budget process to go through.
In practice, everyone has a view on which taxes should be going up. Expect plenty more lobbying, positioning and noise in the coming months. Ed Conway, Sky News in Liverpool.
Well, the Home Secretary told the Labour conference that working class communities will turn to Reform UK if the government fails to get control of migration. Shabana Mahmood said she was prepared to question legal constraints as part of an effort to secure the UK's borders. Our political correspondent Rob Powell has more.
Signs of the industry of old in the heart of the Black Country. For generations, Labour and the Conservatives have fought over Wolverhampton. No longer, with Reform now on the block, seizing on anger against the government and over migration.
If the Prime Minister is so worried about immigration, it seems to me a little bit like it's a little bit too little too late.
I've been working since the first day I landed in this country. I've been paying my taxes, so I think it's not fair.
They were all talking tough and they never did a bloody thing. Not a thing. It's still the same as what it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
So Starmer the man to sort it?
Does he look like it? No.
Shabana Mahmood. It's places like Wolverhampton the Home Secretary has in mind, preparing Labour members for some hard truths.
In solving this crisis, you may not always like what I do.
And some harder policies.
We will soon increase the time in which someone must have lived in this country to earn indefinite leave to remain from 5 years to 10. I will be proposing a series of new tests.
Those will include tougher conditions on criminal records and language skills, as well as requirements to pay national insurance and not be claiming benefits.
Where we fail, others will succeed. Working class communities will turn away from us. They will turn towards something smaller, something narrower, something less welcoming.
Another attack on this man. Nigel Farage has pledged to scrap indefinite leave to remain and deport anyone who doesn't meet strict new visa rules, a policy Sir Keir Starmer has described as racist. After lashing out at Reform, Labour now appears to be tacking towards them. Allies of the Home Secretary say she's also concerned about the so-called Boris wave of migrants that came to the UK after Brexit and will start to be eligible for indefinite leave to remain from early next year. So while the new tests outlined today won't apply to people already in the country, some may still have to wait longer than they'd first thought to get a guarantee that they can stay. Not all Labour members in Liverpool comfortable with this new approach.
There's a saying around the Labour Party that you can't out-reform reform.
A fair Labour approach would be to be like pro-migration, sort of going against reform, not by appeasing people that are anti-immigration, but by saying that this is more this is acceptable.
We have to be there for all people, not just the minorities. I think that's the message we have to get across, and sometimes you might have to be a little bit stronger.
This Home Secretary not afraid to be strong.
Home Secretary, are you giving too much ground to reform?
Thank you.
But many here wondering about the costs and consequences of these shifting political horizons. Rob Powell, Sky News in Liverpool.
Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, joins us live from the Labour Party conference. So, John, headwinds from the Chancellor, a manifesto that stands today, perhaps not by the budget in November. What are we warned of here as we wait to hear, of course, from the Labour leader tomorrow?
Well, day 3 of the Labour conference will be the leader's speech, Keir Starmer, facing the fight of his life against criticism from inside his party, as well as the big threat from reform. Yes, we've heard from the Chancellor and her former deputy, Darren Jones, that we're likely to see some tax rises in the budget in late November, and from Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, some tough reform-style policies. Almost, they sat in subdued silence in the hall when that was being announced. Not much applause for that. But the Prime Minister, in his big speech, will talk about a fork in the road. He'll talk about the choice facing the country. He'll say it's a battle for the nation's soul. It's a choice between decency under Labour and division under Reform UK, or renewal under Labour or decline under Reform. We've heard a lot of attacks on Reform UK. I don't think we've heard the Conservatives mentioned once during this conference. It's all about the fight against reform because Of course, those polls still stubbornly showing a big Reform UK lead. Another bad poll for the Prime Minister, one for Sky News. Party members, 704 of them, suggesting 62% prefer Andy Burnham as leader, only 29% Sir Keir Starmer as leader, with 9% don't knows. 33%, that's 1 in 3 Labour members, think Sir Keir's doing a bad job. Only 63% think he's doing a good job. That is the backdrop when he comes to make this big speech to try and convince not just the people in the hall, but of course the country that he's up to the job. He's had a terrible few weeks, starting with the resignation or sacking of Angela Rayner. Sorry, the resignation of Angela Rayner, the sacking of Peter Mandelson, a reshuffle that critics claim was handled badly, and of course a dissent. We saw dissent in the hall when the conference here voted for a motion accusing Israel of genocide, defying the party leadership, which wanted them to vote for a different motion. So, febrile atmosphere here. Loyalists are hoping that Sir Keir will do well and perhaps, if not silence his critics, try and calm things down a bit. But it's a very tough task for the Prime Minister. The stakes couldn't be higher. The one bit of good news is that the view here seems to be that Andy Burnham has rather overplayed his hand and is perhaps not the threat that perhaps he appeared to be a few days ago when he gave some interviews, particularly one in which he said that Labour MPs were urging him to run against the Prime Minister. The polls are bad, there's dissent in the party, and now it's all down to the Prime Minister to try and rescue things for his party. But there's not a massive amount of confidence that he'll be able to do that. Some MPs say that, yes, OK, he'll do well in the hall and perhaps go away from this conference by perhaps cheering the faithful up a little bit. But, of course, he's still got to convince the country. And those opinion polls are absolutely dire, not getting any better.
Early afternoon for that speech. John, we'll listen carefully. Thank you. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers. In the press preview tonight, we're joined by the PR consultant, Alex Dean, and the journalist and author, Christina Patterson. Welcome, lovely to see both of you. So among the stories, we'll be discussing this on the front page of the Metro. Its headline, "Things Can Only Get Bitter." We will be right back with that and plenty more.